Chosen one, listen carefully. You are not here by accident. You did not click this video out of boredom or curiosity. This moment was scheduled. Heaven aligned the timing, the message, and your spirit to meet right here, right now. As it is written, for such a time as this, your awareness is being activated and your eyes are being opened. Chosen one, you're not broke, you're not lazy, you're not behind. You're playing a game you were never designed to win. And deep down you've felt it, that quiet frustration, that pressure in your chest when life feels smaller than what your spirit knows is possible. That sense that no matter how hard you work, something about the system feels off. That wasn't confusion, that was discernment. Anointed one. Today you are standing at the edge of a supernatural shift, a moment where heaven begins to correct what earth misaligned, where divine order replaces inherited limitation, where sudden elevation, uncommon wisdom, and heaven-sent provision begin to move toward you. The word says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge," but today knowledge is meeting revelation, and revelation always precedes transfer. So stay present, stay open. Let this word search you, awaken you, and realign you. And if your spirit bears witness already, quietly type 777 in the comments as a sign of agreement, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what heaven is unfolding next. Chosen one, this is the moment the game changes. Chosen one, I need you to stay with me here, because what I'm about to say is not information, it's exposure. It's the moment the veil lifts and you finally understand why things never added up, no matter how hard you tried to make them work. There is a way forward. There is an order to this. There is a pattern behind wealth provision and elevation. But it is not the pattern you were trained to follow. And that is why your spirit has felt conflicted for so long. You've been faithful, you've been disciplined, you've done what was asked of you, yet the fruit never matched the effort. That wasn't coincidence, that was misalignment. Chosen one, heaven is not confused about money. Heaven is not intimidated by resources. Scripture makes it clear that silver and gold belong to God, but most people never experience access to it because they are chasing provision instead of alignment. They chase outcomes instead of order. And when order is wrong, effort only produces exhaustion. I remember a season in my own life when I worked harder than I ever had before. Long hours, constant pressure, always telling myself, just a little more time, just a little more effort. But the more I pushed, the tighter everything felt. Bills didn't stop. Anxiety increased. Sleep disappeared. And one night it hit me with clarity that didn't come from thought, but from the spirit. I was faithful in the wrong system. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't cursed. I was positioned in a game that drains life instead of multiplying it. Chosen one, that realization is what you are stepping into now. You have been told directly or indirectly that money is something you work for, something you earn by time, something you trade your life to receive. And because you grew up around scarcity, pressure, or instability, you internalized beliefs that were never spoken out loud. Beliefs like, people like me don't get ahead, or money is hard, or if I don't keep grinding, everything will fall apart. Those beliefs didn't come from truth, they came from environment, and environment shapes perception. That's why two people can work the same job, earn the same salary, live in the same city, yet one feels trapped and the other feels temporary. One feels like life is closing in, the other feels like they're passing through. The difference isn't intelligence, it isn't effort, it's how they see the game. Chosen one. The system you were educated for trained you to value safety over sovereignty. It taught you to obey structures rather than understand how they operate. It taught you to compete for approval instead of positioning for impact. And because of that, you were never shown the full picture, only enough to keep you compliant. But heaven is intervening now. This is the moment where what was hidden becomes visible, where the assumptions you inherited start to dissolve, where you finally see that money does not respond to desperation, it responds to value. And value is not about how tired you are at the end of the day. Value is about how much weight your presence carries in the lives of others. Chosen one, hear this clearly. Money does not move toward effort. It moves toward perceived usefulness. That's why two people can work equally hard and live completely different realities. One is replaceable, the other is essential. And the market, whether people admit it or not, always pays for what it cannot easily replace. This is why the frustration inside you has been growing. You were never meant to be invisible. You were never meant to be interchangeable. You were never meant to trade your breath for survival. Your spirit resists it because your assignment requires leverage. I've watched people give decades of their life to systems that never loved them back. I've seen them reach milestones only to realize the finish line moved again. Promotions that didn't bring peace, raises that didn't bring freedom, titles that didn't bring rest, and the quiet grief of realizing that time, the most precious resource, had been spent in exchange for permission to breathe. Chosen one. Heaven does not waste time like that. That is why this message carries urgency, not panic urgency. Because the longer you stay in a misaligned game, the more life leaks out quietly. And most people don't notice until years are gone, but you noticed early. That's why you're here. That's why this message found you. There is another way of understanding wealth, not as something you chase, but something that follows alignment. When value is clear, provision responds. When order is restored, supply flows. This is why those who solve meaningful problems attract resources without begging for them. Not because they are special, but because they are positioned correctly. And chosen one, you were designed for positioning, not to hustle endlessly, not to grind yourself into numbness, but to see patterns others miss, to notice gaps others ignore, to carry solutions that lift weight off entire groups of people. That is where money moves. That is where favor rests. That is where provision becomes a byproduct instead of a burden. But this road is not easy. I won't lie to you. It requires letting go of comforting lies. It requires unlearning what felt safe. It requires humility, the humility to admit that what you were taught was incomplete. Many will turn back at this stage because certainty feels safer than truth. But those who continue discover something rare. At the end of this road is not just wealth, it's freedom. Freedom from constantly calculating, freedom from fear-driven decisions, freedom from shrinking your life to fit a paycheck. Chosen one. This is not about becoming rich. This is about becoming aligned. Stay with me. Let your assumptions fall. Let the old equations dissolve. Because what heaven is about to reveal next is not theory. It is the key that changes the game you've been trapped in all along. Anointed one. There is something deeper happening beneath the surface of your frustration, and it's important you understand this clearly. The discomfort you felt around money, work, and normal life was never rebellion. It was revelation trying to surface before you had language for it. You were taught that progress looks like effort stacked on effort, years stacked on years, obedience stacked on obedience. But heaven does not move by accumulation the way systems do. Heaven moves by alignment. That is why you can labor faithfully and still feel empty, and why someone else can appear to move effortlessly once they step into the correct position. This is not favoritism. This is order, and order always precedes increase. Most people are taught to see money as a moral issue or a motivational issue. They're told if they just believe more, work harder, stay grateful or remain patient, things will eventually change. But patience without positioning becomes delay, and effort without understanding becomes exhaustion. That's why the same cycles repeat. New year, new goals, same anxiety. New job, new title, same pressure. The system rewards participation, but it rarely rewards transformation. And you, chosen one, were never meant to merely participate. You were meant to shift environments by the weight you carry. Here is the truth. Few are willing to confront money responds to perception, not sincerity. The world pays for what it values, not for how much heart you put into something. That's why entire industries exist around solving inconveniences, saving time, reducing friction, or amplifying results. And that's also why people who solve problems at scale are compensated at levels that feel unreal to those still trapped in time for money thinking. This is not greed, this is law. Just as gravity does not consult your feelings before it pulls, economic reality does not consult effort before it rewards value. I had to learn this the hard way. There was a season where I did everything right. I showed up early. I stayed late. I took responsibility when others avoided it. I believed loyalty would be returned with security, but instead of peace, I gained pressure. Instead of stability, I gained dependency. And one quiet moment changed everything. I realized I was respected, but I was replaceable, appreciated, but not essential, and chosen one. That realization can sting, but it can also set you free. Because the moment you understand replaceability, you begin seeking irreplaceability. And that is where the game shifts. This is why heaven has been disrupting your comfort, not to punish you, but to awaken you. You were never meant to build your life on being needed by a system that doesn't know your name. You were meant to build something that carries your imprint, your discernment, your insight. When Scripture says that gifts make room for a person, it is not speaking metaphorically. It is describing a law of movement. When what you carry answers a real need, doors open without force. When what you offer removes weight from others, provision finds you. Not because you chased it, but because you were aligned with it. Many chosen ones struggle here because they've been taught to feel guilty about wanting more freedom, more margin, more control over their time. But those desires were not planted by ego. They were planted by assignment. You were not created to spend your best years negotiating survival. You were created to steward influence, and influence always requires leverage. This is why simply working harder has never satisfied your spirit. Hard work without leverage feels like pouring water into sand. Something is always missing. Something is always leaking. The world tries to convince you that your only option is endurance. Endure the job, endure the pressure, endure the weight. But heaven invites you into understanding. When you understand how value flows, you stop begging for opportunity and start creating access. When you understand scale, you stop trading hours and start building systems. When you understand perception, you stop trying to prove yourself and start positioning yourself. None of this happens overnight, but it does begin with a shift in how you see reality. And here is where many turn back. Because once you see the game clearly, you can no longer pretend you don't. You can't unsee the cost of trading life for comfort. You can't unknow the truth that time is the most expensive currency you will ever spend. Some will choose familiarity over freedom. They'll call it wisdom, responsibility, or maturity. But deep down, they know they settled. Chosen one. You were not wired for settling. That's why the tension inside you refuses to quiet down. This does not mean you abandon everything tomorrow. It means you stop lying to yourself today. You stop pretending the current path is the destination. You stop calling survival success. You stop confusing busyness with progress. Heaven does not rush this process, but it does require honesty. The honesty to admit that what you were taught was incomplete. The courage to question assumptions without bitterness. The humility to learn how systems really work, instead of resenting those who mastered them. As it is written, wisdom cries out in the streets, but only those who listen are changed by it. And listening is what you are doing now. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is discernment activating in real time. The game you were given was never designed to reward your design. That's why it felt heavy. That's why it felt limiting. That's why your spirit kept pushing back. You were built for a different framework, one where value creates flow and alignment unlocks provision. Stay grounded. Stay present. Let this truth settle without fear. You are not late. You are not broken. You are waking up. And awakening always feels uncomfortable before it feels powerful. Chosen one. Now that your eyes are opening, there is a deeper layer you must confront, because awakening is not just about seeing the wrong game. It is about understanding why it held you for so long. The system did not trap you with chains. It trapped you with agreement. Agreement formed through repetition, through observation, through what you saw growing up, through what was modeled as normal, and what feels normal is rarely questioned. From a young age, you were taught to associate security with obedience, stability with compliance, success with approval. And slowly, without anyone saying it directly, you learned that your worth was measured by productivity, not by purpose. You learned that rest had to be earned, that freedom was a reward reserved for someday, that your value increased only when someone else validated it. These lessons didn't come from cruelty. They came from inheritance, passed down through generations who did the best they could with what they knew. But chosen one inheritance without examination becomes limitation. That is why heaven has been unsettling you. You felt it in moments when everything looked fine on the outside, yet something inside you refused to rest. You felt it when praise didn't satisfy you, when promotion didn't calm you, when more money didn't remove the pressure. Those moments were not ingratitude, they were signals. Signals that your soul was designed for something beyond maintenance. The wrong game keeps people busy enough to survive, but not free enough to build. It keeps them running in cycles that consume energy without creating momentum. You work, you earn, you spend, you repeat. And each cycle feels productive, but nothing compounds. Time passes, but position doesn't change. And the most dangerous part is that the cycle feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels safe. But safety without sovereignty eventually becomes a cage. I've seen this up close. People with talent, insight, and discipline slowly shrinking themselves to fit roles that never expanded. People who once dreamed boldly, learning how to quiet their own hunger so they wouldn't stand out. People who convinced themselves that desire was dangerous and ambition was pride. But chosen one, hunger is not your enemy. Misalignment is. Desire is not corruption. Directionless desire is. When heaven places hunger in you, it is because there is provision assigned to it, but provision only releases when alignment is restored. The system teaches you to ask, what job can I get? Heaven asks, what problem can you solve? The system trains you to compete for limited slots. Heaven invites you to create value where none existed before. The system rewards sameness. Heaven rewards discernment. This is why those who understand leverage seem to move differently. They are not faster. They are not luckier. They are simply playing a different game. And this is where resistance often rises. Because once you hear this, fear tries to step in and say, "Who do you think you are?" It whispers that you're not qualified, not educated enough, not connected enough. But qualification is a system word. Calling is a kingdom word. Heaven does not wait for permission from institutions to release assignment. It waits for surrender. It waits for obedience. It waits for the moment you stop trying to earn worth and start stewarding what you already carry. You have been trained to believe that money is scarce, that opportunity is limited, that only a few get ahead. But scarcity is not a lack of resources, it is a lack of perspective. Look around you. Problems are everywhere. Friction is everywhere. Inefficiency is everywhere. Confusion is everywhere. And where there is a problem, there is demand. Where there is demand, there is value. And where there is value, provision follows. This is not theory. This is observable reality. The reason this feels uncomfortable is because it removes the excuse of helplessness. If money were purely about effort, you could blame exhaustion. If it were purely about luck, you could blame fate. But once you see that it responds to value, you are invited into responsibility. Not blame responsibility. Responsibility for what you notice. Responsibility for what you ignore. Responsibility for what you tolerate. Chosen one, this is where your past struggles begin to make sense. The rejection you faced sharpened your perception. The lack you experienced trained your awareness. The pressure refined your priorities. Nothing was wasted. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Prepared to see what others overlook. Prepared to feel what others numb. Prepared to question what others accept. This is why you don't resonate with surface-level answers. This is why shallow motivation never lasted. This is why just be positive never healed the ache. You weren't meant to be soothed. You were meant to be awakened. And awakening requires discomfort. It requires letting old identities fall away. It requires grieving the years spent chasing approval instead of alignment. It requires forgiving those who taught you incomplete truths while still choosing a different path. The wrong game also taught you to confuse movement with progress. As long as you were busy, you felt safe. As long as you were tired, you felt useful. But exhaustion is not evidence of impact. Heaven is not impressed by burnout. It is not honored by self-neglect. When Scripture speaks of rest, it is not describing laziness. It is describing authority. The ability to move from a place of alignment rather than desperation. You are not meant to be driven by fear of falling behind. You are meant to be led by clarity of assignment. And clarity comes when you stop numbing the inner voice that keeps asking, "Is this it?" That question is holy. It is not rebellion. It is remembrance, a reminder that you were designed for contribution, not consumption, for creation, not containment. Chosen one, you are not being called to abandon responsibility. You are being called to redefine it. Responsibility is not staying where you are out of fear. Responsibility is stewarding what you've been given with wisdom. It is learning how value flows. It is understanding how systems reward certain behaviors and punish others. It is choosing long-term alignment over short-term comfort. Many will never do this work. They will stay where they are because it feels familiar. They will label courage as recklessness and obedience as immaturity. But those voices are not for you. You are not awakening to impress anyone. You are awakening because heaven is repositioning you. And repositioning always begins internally before it shows up externally. Let this truth settle: you were never behind. You were being held in preparation until your perception caught up with your assignment. The moment you see the game clearly, you stop blaming yourself. And when blame dissolves, power returns. Chosen one. Now we move into the place where understanding becomes decision, because insight without response turns into torment. Once you see the wrong game, neutrality is no longer available. You either retreat back into comfort or you step forward into responsibility. And responsibility in this season does not mean doing more, it means seeing differently. Here is where many people misunderstand the shift. They assume alignment means instant escape, that once they wake up, everything changes overnight. But heaven does not operate on impulse. Heaven operates on order, and order requires a restructuring of how you relate to value, effort, time, and identity. This is why this moment feels weighty. You are not just learning something new. You are being asked to release an identity that kept you safe but small. The wrong game taught you to see yourself as a worker first and a thinker second, a performer before a creator, someone who executes rather than someone who designs. That identity was reinforced every time you were praised for obedience instead of insight, every time you were rewarded for compliance instead of contribution. Over time, you learned to silence your instincts and trust instructions. But chosen one instincts are not accidents, they are data, and yours have been signaling misalignment for a long time. This is why certain tasks drain you faster than they drain others. It's not because you lack discipline, it's because your energy is meant to be invested, not expended. You were designed to multiply effort, not burn it. And multiplication only happens when value is separated from time. As long as your income is chained to hours, your ceiling is fixed. Heaven did not design you for a fixed ceiling. That's why the pressure you feel has been increasing. Pressure rises when capacity outgrows its container. I remember a moment when I finally admitted this to myself. I had achieved what many would call stability, predictable income, routine, structure. And yet every time I imagined doing the same thing for the next decade, my spirit recoiled. Not out of arrogance, out of grief. Grief for the parts of me that were slowly being buried so I could appear responsible. That grief was not weakness, it was warning. Chosen one heaven uses discomfort as a compass. The system wants you numb, because numb people don't question. They adapt, they settle, they survive, but you were never meant to survive. You were meant to build, and building requires clarity. It requires understanding what the market actually rewards, not what it pretends to honor. It rewards solutions that remove friction. It rewards ideas that scale beyond geography. It rewards insight that saves time, energy, or confusion for many people at once. This is why those who understand leverage stop chasing money altogether. They chase problems worth solving, not personal problems, structural ones, widespread ones. Problems that don't disappear when one person fixes them, but multiply across communities, industries, and systems. Where the problem is large, the demand is constant. Where the demand is constant, provision flows predictably. The wrong game taught you to fear this truth. It taught you that ambition was dangerous, that scale was greedy, that wanting more meant you were ungrateful. But that narrative keeps people manageable. It keeps them dependent. It keeps them asking permission instead of building authority. Heaven is not threatened by scale. Heaven created multiplication. It created seed time and harvest. It created systems that grow when stewarded correctly. Chosen one. This is not about becoming obsessed with money. Money is a signal, not a destination. It signals where value is flowing. It signals what the world currently prioritizes. Ignoring that signal doesn't make you spiritual. It makes you uninformed. The goal is not to worship money. The goal is to understand it well enough that it no longer controls you. When you understand how it moves, you stop fearing it. When you stop fearing it, you stop chasing it. And when you stop chasing it, you can steward it. This is where the internal shift must happen. You must stop seeing yourself as someone waiting to be chosen and start seeing yourself as someone positioned to serve. Chosen One is not a title of entitlement. It is a responsibility of perception. You see what others overlook. You feel what others suppress. You question what others normalize. That makes you uncomfortable in systems built on repetition, but it also makes you dangerous to stagnation. Many people want the outcome without the transformation. They want freedom without responsibility, provision without positioning, but heaven does not bypass process. It redeems it. You are being taught to think in terms of systems, not tasks. In terms of reach, not effort. In terms of impact, not appearance. This requires patience but not passivity, awareness but not anxiety. The wrong game also taught you to believe that failure was final, that mistakes disqualified you, that starting over meant you were behind. But in reality, failure is data. It reveals what does not scale, what does not last, what cannot sustain pressure. Those who build lasting value are not those who avoided failure. They are those who learned how to fail without collapsing their identity. They separated who they are from what they tried. Chosen One, you are allowed to learn. You are allowed to adjust. You are allowed to outgrow what once made sense. You are allowed to release paths that no longer align without condemning your past self. Growth always feels like betrayal to the old identity, but it is loyalty to your future. This season is not asking you to leap blindly. It is asking you to observe honestly, to notice what drains you and what energizes you, to pay attention to problems you instinctively want to solve, to listen when frustration keeps pointing to the same gaps. Those patterns are not random. They are invitations, clues to where your value intersects with demand. You do not need to have everything figured out. You need to stop pretending the current structure is sufficient. The moment you stop lying to yourself, clarity begins to form. And clarity is far more powerful than confidence. Confidence can be loud and misplaced. Clarity is quiet and precise. Chosen One. The game changes not when you work harder, but when you see differently. And once you see, you can no longer unsee. The discomfort you feel now is not confusion, it is recalibration. Heaven is reorienting you from survival thinking to stewardship thinking, from consumption to creation, from endurance to alignment. Let the pressure refine you, not rush you. Let the awareness deepen without fear. You are not losing ground, you are shedding weight, and what remains will be strong enough to carry what is coming. Chosen One. This is where everything you've sensed begins to settle into truth. Not a loud truth, not a dramatic truth, but a grounded, irreversible truth that changes how you move from this point forward. Because once alignment begins internally, the external world starts responding differently, not immediately, but inevitably. The wrong game trained you to look for permission before movement, to wait for certainty before action, to seek validation before trusting your discernment. But heaven does not operate that way. Heaven moves through obedience, not consensus. And obedience often begins when clarity is partial, not complete. That's why this season feels unfamiliar. You are being asked to walk without the comfort of guarantees. Many people say they want freedom, but what they really want is reassurance. They want to know it will work before they commit. They want confirmation before responsibility. But Chosen One faith does not wait for proof. It responds to alignment. And alignment rarely feels safe at first. It feels exposed. It feels uncertain. It feels like standing on unfamiliar ground without the old markers to guide you. This is why so many people retreat once they reach this stage. They don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they miss the familiarity of the old cage, the routine, the predictability, the identity of being busy but acceptable. Freedom requires a different kind of discipline, the discipline of listening inwardly instead of reacting outwardly, the discipline of choosing long-term positioning over short-term relief. I've watched people awaken to truth and then talk themselves back into comfort. They say things like, "Now's not the right time," or "I'll do this later," or "I just need to be more stable first." But stability is not a location you reach. It is a capacity you build, and capacity only grows when you stretch beyond what is familiar. Chosen one. The reason this message resonates so deeply is because it aligns with what you've already lived. You've seen how effort alone plateaus. You've experienced how loyalty does not always lead to leverage. You've felt the ceiling that appears when time is the primary currency. These were not failures. They were confirmations. Confirmations that the system you were in could not contain what you were designed to carry. This is also where comparison must die. The wrong game thrives on comparison. Who is ahead? Who is behind? Who is winning? Who is struggling? But comparison only exists when you believe everyone is running the same race. You are not. Your path is not linear. Your timeline is not borrowed. Your assignment is not generic. Measuring yourself against people playing a different game will always distort your vision. Chosen one, you are not late. You are early to understanding, early to discernment, early to seeing the cost of staying misaligned. Many people won't realize this truth until decades later. Some never will. You are being given the gift of awareness while time is still on your side. That alone is evidence of favor. Now hear this carefully. Alignment does not mean you abandon wisdom. It does not mean you burn bridges recklessly. It does not mean you despise where you are. It means you stop confusing where you are with who you are. You can be grateful without being complacent. You can be patient without being passive. You can honor the present without idolizing it. Heaven is not asking you to gamble your life. Heaven is asking you to steward it. Stewardship begins when you start asking better questions. Not, how do I make more money, but where does my value create the most impact? Not, what should I do next, but what problems do I keep noticing that others ignore? Not, how do I escape this situation, but what is this season training me to see? Those questions shift your posture from survival to strategy, and strategy always attracts provision, not instantly, but consistently. The wrong game taught you to chase outcomes. The right alignment teaches you to build foundations. Foundations take time, but they last. Foundations don't fluctuate with emotion. They don't collapse under pressure. They support growth when momentum arrives. And momentum will arrive not because you forced it, but because alignment makes it inevitable. Chosen one, I need to speak directly to the fear that may be rising right now. The fear of getting it wrong, the fear of wasting time, the fear of stepping out and failing publicly. That fear is not a sign to stop. It is a sign you are approaching territory that matters. Safe paths rarely provoke fear. They provoke boredom. Growth paths provoke resistance because they stretch identity. You are allowed to learn without condemning yourself. You are allowed to experiment without labeling yourself a failure. You are allowed to evolve without explaining yourself to everyone. This journey does not require perfection. It requires honesty. Honesty about what drains you. Honesty about what excites you. Honesty about what you can no longer pretend satisfies you. Many people will misunderstand you as you shift. Some will call you unrealistic. Some will say you've changed. Some will project their fear onto your faith. Let them. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is alignment, and alignment will always offend systems that benefit from your compliance. Chosen one. This is also the moment to release shame. Shame about past decisions. Shame about staying too long. Shame about not knowing sooner. Shame is useless here. You made decisions with the awareness you had at the time. Awareness has increased, so your choices can increase. That is not failure, that is growth. As Scripture reminds us, the path of the just shines brighter and brighter. Not suddenly, progressively. Light increases as you move forward, not before. You do not need to see the entire road. You need to take the next aligned step with integrity. This is not a call to impatience. It is a call to intention, to stop drifting, to stop numbing the inner voice, to stop postponing obedience under the disguise of preparation. Preparation is valuable, but only when it leads to movement. Chosen one. You are not being rushed. You are being invited. Invited to step out of reaction and into authorship. To stop letting circumstances dictate your identity, to recognize that the frustration you felt was not a curse, it was a summons. You are not here because you are broken. You are here because you are becoming aware, becoming responsible, becoming aligned. And alignment always precedes transfer, not just financial transfer, but transfer of authority, clarity, and peace. Let this truth anchor you. You are not behind schedule. You are on the brink of coherence. The scattered pieces are beginning to align. The pressure is easing into focus, and the confusion is giving way to direction. Stay steady, stay honest, stay aligned. The wrong game is losing its grip because you are no longer agreeing with it. And when agreement breaks, authority returns. Chosen one. You have reached the end of this message, but what heaven has begun in you is only just unfolding. This was not information, it was alignment. Not motivation, but activation. You were not listening by chance. You were positioned here because this is your Kairos moment, the exact window where clarity meets obedience and heaven responds. Anointed one. I declare that the wrong game no longer has authority over your life. The veil has lifted. The agreement has broken. A supernatural transfer is already in motion, not just of resources, but of wisdom, discernment, and positioning. What once drained you will no longer define you. What once limited you will no longer lead you. You are stepping forward with new sight, steady faith, and quiet confidence. Remain faithful, stay aligned. Do not rush and do not retreat. What is coming will not need force, it will arrive in order. Look ahead with gratitude because what is forming now is heaven-backed and cannot be reversed. If this word resonated in your spirit, quietly affirm it in the comments. Let your agreement be spoken. And if you feel led, subscribe and stay connected. There are more moments of alignment ahead. Share where you're watching from, your city, your nation, and let this space become a point of unity. Chosen one, walk in peace, walk in clarity. Walk knowing the game has changed and you are exactly where you are meant to be.